Hey, 7:35 on the link, Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, IT&E, and Jack in the Box. Good morning, Sabrina.
Off day.
Morning, Jay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Guam. Let's go ahead into the KUAM News Link Zoom room where we have the minority leader, again, Senator Chris Duenas, joined by his minority colleagues, Senator Tello Taitigui and Senator Frank Blas Jr. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Sabrina.
Morning.
Hi. See you, Sabrina.
I guess we'll just get right into it then. We'll start with Senator Duenas. I know that the budget proposal was submitted by the Office of the Governor. I want to say it was like just a couple days ago, right?
January 31st.
Right.
I believe that's the deadline.
And it's quite a voluminous, I'd always wanted to say that word out loud, a voluminous document, very Bible-esque. But Senator Duenas, your initial takeaways, I guess, and we'll just go down the line after that.
Sure. My initial takeaway is if this budget were up for a vote today, it would be an absolute no. I find it curious. I guess I find the narrative more curious maybe than the numbers. I was really kind of intrigued that the governor basically said, don't consider the ARP funds, as something to basically incorporate into the budget. Which is basically a 180 from the first 5 or so agencies in last year's fiscal year budget that came before us. They started telling us in terms of what their ARP funds were going to go for in terms of levelizing or even replacing some of their budgets. And then I think the front office, kind of figured out that was a bad idea. And then everybody just shut down after that in terms of talking about ARP and what their requests or what the governor was setting aside for them. So that kind of was, kind of floored me to begin with. The other thing is, Chris and Bree, we talked about this last week, and as we've been talking about the budget going forward, I think that 5%, it's very clear now every fiscal year that what's tracking is the, $50 to $60 million in, projections, and we saw 64 million in 2021. We're seeing tracking right now 50 million in fiscal year 2022 where we are. So she tells us don't touch that 5%, but it's very clear now, even with no PUA or FPUC and the like, to still be bold and kind of forthright that will track all the way through this year, even with basically zero tourism. It's really got to bear out now that it is that 5% on the backs of the businesses and those who are paying those taxes through higher costs. That is what really is the fuel, as opposed in with as well other reimbursements to the government of Guam, EITC, ACTC, and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of long discussion. I'm glad that it starts in January because that's the way it should be. But I can tell you, we'll see what my colleagues have to say, and I'm glad to see you this morning, Senator Tello, Senator Frank. But this budget, I don't think will look like this in August.
Go ahead, Senator Tello.
Good morning, and again, it's good to see you, Sabrina.
Thanks.
Welcome back. I think Senator Duenas, is correct about it won't pass right now, but no budget that's provided to us from the governor would pass right now at this point. And it is a little bit too early to comment on it, especially when we haven't had the SES meeting with the financial team to come in front of us to give us an economic outlook. What we can do is just be, very frugal at this point, look at the numbers and see that certain areas that need adjusting right now and to justify it. I mean, it's a lot of tedious work. I mean, this is the job of senators. That's why we've been put into place to do this most important thing of the year, and that is the budget. But one thing I'm happy to see in the budget is the fact that she did incorporate the 2% rainy day fund, where last year she suspended it. And in her budget, that this year there's no suspension. We're looking at trying to save some funding. And, we have to be very, very conscious about all the bills that are out there right now that's ready to spend money. I think it's time we hold off on any more spending at this point and start really looking at the areas that were lacking. We need to look at the reserves that she had put in place for FY21. In September, a report came out putting money aside. Why are you putting these reserves aside as we appropriate these agencies? I think we were very frugal when we did that. And for her to set these reserves aside, it just weakens the agencies. We looked at a latest report that came out recently on reserves, setting reserves aside for agencies for December 31st. Actually, the report said FY21, but it's technically, they made a mistake. It's FY22. They're starting to put these reserves aside. It doesn't help us when they do that as well. So I'm looking forward to the SES meetings coming up. Hopefully that'll be there. Again, I think Senator Duenas talked about the 62 million the CRER report for the end of fiscal year 21. And right now we're looking at 35 million for the December CRER report for 2022, which estimated at 50 million by the end of the year. But then you're looking at $10 million war claims, $35 million for the hospital, $5 million for DOC, a $19 million shortfall for special funds in FY21. You're looking at this $16 million public safety raises that are anticipated. We still have a deficit of 1.5, and you put all these things together, you're coming out with a negative at this point. So we have to be very cautious. And one thing I'm really concerned about is the matching for Medicaid. Last year we had it at 81.1, to 10.9 matching. And now if we don't have that Build Back Better bill come through that we're all anticipating, I think it's kind of watered down. You're looking now at 55-45 match. And we need to come up with that money, especially in this area. So there's a lot of bills on our plate, to look at, and we have to still maintain being frugal and ensure that public safety, healthcare, and education is at the forefront. I had a discussion with DOE last night, and I want to thank Frank Cooper Nurse, who took the time even after 5 o'clock to give me some numbers on their numbers. They're wanting $268 million. And some of that, I believe, what did he say? 5,657,000 is just on special funds, and the remaining at 262 going from general fund money. That's a $84 million increase from last year's budget. So there's a lot to look at. It's really early in the game, very early in the game.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Senator Blas.
Well, first off, good morning, Chris, Jace, Bree. My condolences again, but welcome home. I share the same sentiments as my two colleagues. I find this proposal as, first off, intriguing, and I don't share the same optimism that the administration shares with regards to the figures and. What we intend to, or what we project to be projections in all categories, whether it be general funds, special funds, or federal matching. One of the key things that we can continually and constantly, or the administration constantly misses, is the economic viability of the community. It's the community that is able to generate this revenue that the government needs to be able to operate. And for the government to continue, the administration to continue, that the government can operate the way it continues to operate on the backs of the community and not providing the community the support and the assistance that they need to overcome what they've had to go through over the last 2 to 3 years, which was imposed by the government. This was not something that was naturally made. such as a typhoon or earthquake. This was government ordered, and they continue to have in place these government orders that continue to severely restrict business activity. You restrict business activity. Businesses don't have the ability to gain revenue, to earn revenue, so that they in turn can pay, whether it's 5% or 3% GRT. 5% of zero is the same as 3% of zero. If a business isn't open, no matter, you can raise the GRT to the BT 10%. It's not going to pay it. And if that's what you're going to continue to rely on, so that the government can continue to operate as it does, that's very ambitious and almost, you're putting that right back on the backs of the people. That's not right. So I'm going to continue to look at this feverishly. Like you said, Chris, it's a pretty huge document, and I'm sure there are a lot of nuances that are contained in this document that purports to be what they want as a budget. Just that, again, looking at the summary page. Okay, how are you going to get this money? It's easy to say that with this money we're going to do this. Well, first off, the question has got to be, how are we going to get the money? And that's a question that's going to have to be asked and answered over the next few months for the next fiscal year, because I'm not even sure that we're going to get to what we project our figures to be for this fiscal year. There's a reliance on several federal stimulus packages or aid packages that are in the pipe in the Beltway that may not materialize. And if it doesn't materialize, what's it going to do for us? I think that we're putting too much reliance on the passage of many of those packages just so that we can survive. Again, it's for who to survive? Is it for the government to survive, or is it for the community to survive? And I'm going to continue to side on the side of the community.
Senator, we'll go back around. Senator Duenas, I know you guys saw the governor's testimony before the Senate yesterday, but it was quite a wish list in her testimony, right? She was some of the things she was asking for, stimulus package.
Yeah, but specifically for the U.S. territories, a seat at the table for treaty negotiations for compact impact. There was
quite
a few.
Basically
H2B, there was a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of asks, Senator Duenas. So can we just get a response to just some of the governor's testimony before the Senate committee?
Sure. Just real quickly, I think my colleagues really summed up some other parts of the budget real quick. Senator Frank Blas has advocated for at least accountability to the mandates. I think we just call for the mandates to completely go away right now. The business community is crying out. This vax unvax dividing our people is becoming ridiculous. I think he's absolutely right. I mean, we're calculating on funds coming in when we're basically not working close enough with the business community. Senator Tallow, put in that amendment for the report. We still haven't seen the January report in terms of expenditures of ARP. One of the things I think that was very clear, it's about what we don't know, right? I've been told by fiscal people that even the CARES Act money and there's still bank accounts because that can be spent out to 4 years that we're not seeing right now, and a lot of the smoothing of this budget, right? So that's why I say it's an absolute no right now, because it's more about what we don't know than what's been put before us. But going to the governor's request nationally, I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I think point for point, with the exception of the hospital, and the recognition is kind of interesting. She's sitting before Joe Manchin, who is who with one of his colleagues on the Democrat side are really the impediment to Build Back Better. I think for good reasons. They're talking about a skinny bill nationally to try to get something passed under this administration. But if you really look at the rest of the laundry list, it's kind of a rehash of what governors, I would say at least the past 3 governors and administrations have put forward. compact impact, that's been a perennial issue. You look at some of the other requests, it really kind of is really a rehash of things that have been being asked from administration to administration. Any governor, right? Our governor, when we go before the Congress, that's the time to trot it out. I can't fault that, but I other than the hospital, I didn't hear anything new. I personally kind of think that there's more that we can do and could have done on the issue of the hospital, other than relying on Build Back Better and other than sequestering. Senator Frank has really worked on saying, really, is this 300 or now 220 million? Is that the best use of our money, given the fact that we've identified a funding source for the hospital? I think there's been a missed opportunity to continue to leverage this buildup for a hospital. So I don't know that we count on Build Back Better. I think that we need to be a lot more aggressive and leverage our position better. And I think there's been missed opportunities. So, like I said, it's other than the hospital, I didn't see anything new. That was kind of a rehash of requests.
Have you heard anything about, the Missile Defense Agency? We heard from Joint Region Marianas basically confirming that the agency was here because they're conducting their missile defense review across the country, right? And they're eyeing Eagles Field, where she wants to build her hospital. Do we have any other alternatives? I mean, or have you guys heard? I know that there was Atticao, I think, was another location that she was looking at, but ultimately it was Eagles Field. That's where I want it. That's where it's going to be. I already signed some paperwork.
I mean, I think there was the one opportunity to go back to the old hospital. That's the one right in Mooning above the Hilton, and found that this would probably be an area that already has its infrastructure and would cost less than going to an area that is undeveloped. When I heard the interview of the Admiral on your show, I was really taken back about now the tables have turned. I mean, what she's told us is concentrating on building 3 public facilities in one area. I mean, going big. I mean, that's great, going big, but the reality is the funding there, and it's not. The reality is that we do need a new hospital. That's for sure. But if there's an opportunity to go to a place that was actually, in the first place, an area for public health that was donated by a family to utilize that area, then that's a great possibility as far as cost is concerned too, because of the infrastructure already being there. So I think we can still have this hospital, but in this location might be more feasible. I don't know of any other Chamorro Land Trust properties that there was one in Chalampago they looked at for this area, but because of the I guess the hillside and the all the land being so uneven, it would cost more to develop that than anything else. But he talks about I didn't hear the whole interview or the comments that the governor made in Congress when she was there. But I think one of the things that she's lacking is putting funding, which we know is still in the bank. I don't know why she's holding on to it. As Senator Chris said, I mean, there's a lot of funding out there that needs to come out to the public.
How much is left, Bree?
It's about 400 million.
So about 400 million is what we're tracking, senators.
Based on that last report they submitted, right, to the legislature.
Which isn't the one that's...
The expenditure.
So there's one that's due now?
Yeah, the end of every month. I think January is due.
I follow along on the federal side to see exactly how much money has been given to the government of Guam. And then, of course, they have to account for all this funding and spending with the feds by giving the report. They don't give it to the legislature, but I know they have to give it to the federal government, on their expenditures. But I think one of the things she's lacking here is programs and training programs for our community. We need to now start building a different type of economic, growth on this island, and that means retraining our people of Guam for other, areas like healthcare, pushing more money into those areas, tourism, we saw what happened during the pandemic. And if we think that this pandemic is not going to ever happen again, a pandemic like this is not going to happen, then, this is the reality check that we all need. And it's time to put a plan together that actually helps to rebuild and retrain our people in different fields of technology, healthcare, education. Is there a plan for that? No, we talk about growing our island, losing our brain thinking tank to the US. People are leaving off island. Look at the population now. It's starting to go from 170 down to 162. It's going lower because people are leaving Guam. They're not happy. I can tell you one thing, a lot of people are not happy with this administration. Look at administrations that have been in government, right? And then you look at how many has left island because they're just so disgusted that nothing is happening, that all they're worried about is just filling their own pockets or self-serving interest. And people are tired about that. We're losing so many people. Our good teachers are leaving island too as well.
Senator Blaza, your thoughts on just the governor's testimony and everything that's there's so much going
on. I agree with Senator Chris. There were a lot of the points on her speech were pretty much generic. When you talk about compact impact and you talk about relations and whatnot, did I expect her to have that that same tone or that request? Sure. You're at that national stage. You're in front of a body that is part of the group that will make those decisions, and so this is the opportunity for our governor as well as the governors of other territories to want to make their case. Unfortunately, I know the rules of Senate hearings and whatnot. Being a part of that, once before, you're really quite limited in what you can present and what you can provide, because they do limit you. There's this clock right in front of you that tells you how much time you got, and so you're really racing, for lack of a better term, racing against the clock and trying to make your case. And so then you've got to take what is basically your top seven, with the governor, most of it was pretty much generic. But then again, her push for Build Back Better, could there have been other things that we could have been presented? Maybe. But at the point in time, I'm sure that her people have said, Governor, this is what we'd like for you to focus on, giving her that advice, and she went with it. So that remains to be seen. That said, is I think that even if we request for additional federal aid in the form of Build Back Better and like Senator Duane said, the skinny version of it. It's how is that money going to affect and going to help the community? I think we have to focus on that, and again, rebuild an economy. Senator Tello, brought up an interesting thing. I think that I believe that one of the things that we gotta look at is diversifying the economy that we have, and there is that funding that's sitting in accounts that were provided to us for those same purposes to get us out of this doldrum that we're in, and that could be utilized so that you do have that funding to help businesses diversify or create diversification within their businesses, so that we can contribute, to the economy, and hence, then be able to pay whether it be 3% or 5%, you'll be able to pay it. But again, like I go back to, whether it's 3%, 5%, or 10%, if business brings in zero, it's zero. And so
Senators, could you hold real quick and we'll jump over the top of the hour? Hope you guys got your jumping shoes on. On the breeze, we're KUAM FM and Agotnia, Guam. A big surprise. Senator Frank Blas not as optimistic as the administration with their budget proposal, and we'll continue with our minority senators in the Guam legislature next on the breeze. We're KUAM FM, Agotnia, Guam. KUAM TV, fix yourself. Here we come. Good morning. Good morning, Guam. Good morning. It is 8:01, Thursday, February 3rd. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
We're in with minority senators here of the 36th Guam legislature. And we were, well, Bree was about to ask a question. Bree, good morning.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was reading this right with this budget submission by the executive branch. So is this correct that what we're looking at right now is we're tracking $35 million over the adopted revenue projection for the current fiscal year, and for next fiscal year we're looking at $50 million more in general fund revenue?
No, it's 35 million what we're tracking right now. And over the estimated revenue right now. But it's estimated that by the end of this fiscal year, FY22, they're projecting it would be a excess of $50 million at the end of FY22. Right now, FY21, which we just finished that fiscal year, has given us a 62 million unaudited, by the way, unaudited excess revenue for FY21. So, and that in the budget bill that we had for FY22, we tried to put some, lock boxes in those areas to send 20 million of that to tax refunds, to cover tax refunds. 70 million of that, 70% of that excess revenue is to go into tax refunds as well. And then 20% of that, or 30% of that, is to go into a reserve, a rainy day reserve. That's what the FY22 budget had put out there. But yeah,
so what's the revenue projection for FY 2023?
Revenue projection, well, according to the governor, I'm looking, and maybe my colleagues can answer that too, but I'm looking at an increase about $990 million for her budget. So that's 990 million coming in.
You're saying it wrong. You got to say like 990 million.
That's almost $1 billion, you guys.
Is that over what our current fiscal year budget?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the analysis there is basically 50 million.
So it is 50 million.
More. In excess to, there's considerations. I broke it down a little bit. There are considerations across, public safety, healthcare, and of course, education. I think the discussion on education is going to be the big one. As my colleagues have mentioned, you've got that public safety by executive order. That's there. That's going to have to be
talking about the raises,
for.
Right?
There's a big push, of course, by the Board of Education to move right into teacher pay, and so really what's looming is really a lot of things that aren't even factored, right? Even though you look at potential increases. So I really believe, if there's anything we do for the balance of this year, and I'm calling on the chairman to really convene the SES, post haste, and to, if we have to continue to update on a monthly basis, because once again, I'm really, we're basically looking at the first quarter to anticipate these projections. I'm really surprised that they put this $50 million increase in this budget with so much uncertainty about what the next, several quarters are going to bring. And that's why I said straight off, there's no way I could even think about anticipating this type of budget, at least to see one more quarter, which we've just started basically. So yeah, and I want to be clear. I want to, Senator Tello was part of the 35th. Senator Frank and I came into this 36th. I'm also a little disturbed that the governor right now seems to be taking most, if not all, of the credit for these surpluses. But the fact is, it's the legislature of the 35th and the 36th right now that has had that conservative budget. We passed one of the reasons why they're tracking right now the $50 million surplus. It wasn't just a few months ago. My colleagues and I were fighting on the floor for this. It's one of the reasons why I voted for the budget was they wanted $50 million more in BPT. And if that was the case, right now we'd actually be tracking a $14 million deficit because we're only realizing $35 million, which is still good. Don't get me wrong. That's still a good tracking to be ahead of, but they wanted 50 million, and it's the 35th and the 36th so far that is fundamentally responsible for this fiscal, for the constraints and for the fact that we're realizing surplus.
One of the other things I just wanted to bring up is tax refunds in this particular bill that the governor has brought forward to us. I mean, she's only put aside $90 million. I was talking to the Office of OPA, former Speaker BJ Cruz, and she goes, I just don't understand how the legislature in all my years only set aside like $120 million for tax refunds when the reality was we paid out 165. So now when I was looking at this, I saw only $90 million set aside for tax refunds. This is an issue too.
How concerned are you guys that when you guys actually have the budget oversight hearings, we're going to kind of see what we saw last year where, I can't tell you about ARP. No, I am not allowed to talk about that, Because this seemed like a major headache, even just watching, like.
Yeah. Well,
do you guys need Advil or anything?
I remember when I brought that up, it was public health, in fact, and it was Arts and Augustine, and we were in the public hearing on the budget. And I actually brought up, well, do you have a plan on how much money you're going to get from COVID funding, CARES Act money? And he goes, well, we are planning to get this amount. I said, and then everyone was just surprised because they're giving us, their laundry list or what they're anticipating to get, which helps us in the budget. Because knowing they're going to get funding from there, we can put that money somewhere else, like education, and so, it was very ironic. And the next thing you know, they were all given a gag order not to spill the beans on what they're getting from the administration as far as any, grant and aid. And now we have ARPA funding. So they're probably not going to tell us what they're going to get. But
now that I think about it, there is that breakdown that you guys are getting on the allocation and expenditures. So
right. And like it says, if you look at the report they put out, it says that it's not finalized, it's still in draft form, it's not itemized. The biggest issue is not itemized. They're putting money, earmarking certain agencies, ARP funding, $3 million, and that's it. No explanation. Is that salaries? Is that, and that's the kind of information we need going forward to put a budget together.
Well, what is clear, I think, is this 5% BPT.
Yeah, they need that for all the above step recruitments, guys. Sorry, business community. Senator Blas, you look like you really want to say something. Are you going to announce?
Yeah, he's holding back. Like,
don't hold back. Of all the years, just let it all out.
I am trying not to go off right now.
At my colleagues, provide. I'm just the volcano is still smoldering. I appreciate the conversation and listening to the take of my colleagues. With regard to right now how the administration reports that they've received, their projections are in excess, or what they've gotten is in excess of the projections they've received. We've got to remember where this money had come from. Okay, how did we get to 35 to 50 million dollars over projections? But where did that money come from? When you got an economy where basically 60 to 70% of its organic economic engine has been sputtered, where did that money come from? And there's no sign right now of that same industry, that same economy coming back to life pre-2019 or pre-COVID for another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, she said
So
3
how
years
do we
yesterday.
anticipate, or how do we continue to say that? How do we continue to say that we're going to exceed the expectations that we've had, or the projections that we've had for revenue? Is there a reliance on some monies that we don't know about that the federal government is just going to provide to us freely? And there's a caveat to that. Nothing in life is free. Is there going to be an extra buildup, money that now they're going to be able to open up positions, food and beverage and hotel room, the cleaning service positions that many of the 5,000 to 6,000 people who are still unemployed can now jump in and get, and receive a paycheck. We're forgetting about a lot of that. The administration continues to forget about, those drivers, about those parts to this economy, to this community that make up our economy. Our economy is not made up by federal stimulus or by the monies that we got. Nor do I feel that the administration, as Senator Duane said, continue to hold money in their purses because they can stretch it out over the next 2 to 3 years. There's a gaping wound now that's in the community that we need to be able to take care of. There's a community that we need to get back up on its feet. Yet the government and this administration continues to think that the way this is going to be is we got to provide government with all of its resources. What about the businesses? What about the families? There are still people that are looking, for some help to be able to feed their families. Okay? This is almost 3 going into 3 years on this pandemic. What about them? And I'm going to continue to hold that line and ask those questions. Okay? And help not just those businesses try to get back on its feet, but the families to try to regain their dignity.
But let me ask you, Senator Blas,
despite all of this,
what would be your response though if they were to say, Hoffa, I gave you LEAP, I got the ERA, I got the HAF, I gave you All Rise. What would be your response?
Why do we have to beg for it? One of the things that I want to go back to is I remember early on in this pandemic. All right, obviously Senator Duane and I weren't in the legislature yet, but early on in this pandemic, if I remember correctly, they shut things down like on March 15th, March 20th, and then there was this need, and I thank KUM because you guys stepped up to the plate big time on this thing too. There was this need in the community, for food. Thousands of families had no means to be able to get food. Okay, and it took the community efforts to get that started.
Yeah.
Okay, almost 3 months into that pandemic, it took the community saying, "Look, government, if you're not going to do anything, get out of the way. We're going to do it."
Right.
And then the government comes, "Oh no, now we're going to take over this." Okay, and put out videos of and here let's go out and now feed the community. Well, they were waiting for 3 months. The business community, you want to talk about LEAP? Okay, that LEAP process, and Senator Duane will tell you that started in our office.
In Frank's office.
Okay, and
Frank brought us together.
Okay, that started in our office. and you know, so it was like, can we do something for them? And then they took it on as, okay, guys, you know, this is our project. Again, I don't want to, you know, it's not to look to gain the credit and anything, but if we didn't move on a lot of the stuff, would there have been leak?
That's right.
I wonder if we didn't complain about the Rise
So
Act
again,
that last year. Same deal, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it's you know, they had all this money, they received all of this federal stimulus, and you know, according to them, we have no businesses looking into how they're spending it nor telling them how to spend it. But yet we've got community members coming into our offices, meeting us, daily at Happy Mart, saying, Senator, how can the government help us in this? And at this stage of the game, that's not conversations that we should be having. But we continue to have. So to say that now we're progressing and moving forward, who is? The government? Because the community is still hurting.
Frank is spot on. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, even you, Chris and Bree and Jason and everything else. I mean, I was looking forward when I first came in as a senator to watching your show, so I could hear from at least the lieutenant governor, once in a while the governor, agencies, everything else. I mean, it has been the media, it has been the legislature for all the criticism. And hey, look, this is, you know, that's part of what we do, right? But even if you go back into the 35th, I mean, let's go back to checkpoints. You know, let's go back to everything that the legislature has had to push back against to make things happen. And that's one of the reasons why I think the three of us, you can see, I mean, we look at this budget and go, you know, no, this is going to be a process, because everything that has happened has been driven by the media and by the legislature. When you say, you know, what about this? I gave this, I gave this, I gave this. First of all, it's the people's money. You know, the federal government gave it. You guys aired a commercial last night that I thought was pretty interesting. Sponsored by the Congressman's office. You know, Just Pirates Cove. Thank you for the federal money.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
heard that.
let's just be real, right? I mean, it has been the prodding. It has been the prodding of a lot of senators and yourselves and the community who has forced the hand. And even when it comes, it's like, well, I'll give you 50 million now, and 25 million of that has to come from the legislature. Senator Tello was right. I mean, if you line out all the commitments that have been made going forward, and by the way, I think I found the reason why there's a $90 million tax refund request. We talked about this last week, you guys. There is no way, unless there's just a dump truck that backs up and dumps down some pen sand and some people put some shovels and hats on to celebrate something that's not going to happen. There's no groundbreaking for the hospital in this year. And so the fact is that there's that 35 million that we set aside for financing for that. I guarantee you that the anticipated revenue between that 90 and the normal 125 request is the 35 million that's not going to be required as debt service, because there will be no financing on the market for a hospital. We're not even close to that. Mm-hmm. And especially with the issue of Manguilao, and especially with probably some stubbornness and not wanting to go to Oka Point, which is probably the right place to put it. So there's that money, 90 plus 35, 125. That's the typical, request for tax refunds. So, you know, Bree, great question. And the bottom line is, you're absolutely right. None of us is going to stand here and say these programs haven't rolled out. But I tell you what, as I sit here with my two colleagues and the other, 4 colleagues we have on our side of the aisle and others on the other side as well, I will tell you that has come, because of the fact that for us, it's been like a trip to the dentist every time we try to work with the front office.
Yeah, and you know what's another thing is, I'm just so tired of hearing how the governor's gone out saying, "Oh, I'm working with the senators." I don't know which senator, but none of us have been called in, and I think there's only 2 or 3 of them that she's been working for. And how can we move any programs through, or how can we come together and not spend all our time trying to figure out what kind of shenanigans that she's doing in any kind of budget or program. We spend too much energy on trying to dissect this, that, she's playing smoke and mirrors, instead of really, really coming together and sitting on the table and discussing this budget. The sky has stopped raining funding. Now's the time to really sit and talk, not just to one or two senators and say, okay, I got this in the bag. Let's really sit down. And if the governor is listening, yes, bring everyone to the table. If you're announcing how you're talking with the senators or working with the legislature, and she says that in Congress too, which is ironic because she doesn't. So I'm willing to come to the table, to sit down and talk, Governor, if you want to really sincerely work together.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Duenas, thank you so much. Senator Blas, thank you guys. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Right on. We appreciate you too. Have a great day.
There you go.
Create a great day, everyone.
All right.
Okay, Senator Blas, are you going to announce before we let
Thank
you go?
you.
Or are you good?
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's the right on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting.
Who is that?
really.
Which one of them said that? Oh, there's not going to be a hospital groundbreaking this year. Senator Duenas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Never say never with this administration. But yeah, it's a big one. Big.
It is $50 million more. Wow.
Yeah. Man, Oka
But
Point.
I wonder, are they going to have the teacher raises in there?
Yeah, but when we talked to the board yesterday, they seemed to say that, okay, we got to do the study, and maybe they're looking at September forward, right? But I know that...
I think that there's a mandate that they have to have it done by September.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, if it's passed and approved, then they would be able to get the pay raises in 2020.
2023. Yep. But I know that Lou and Josh would love to get that done this year in the election year. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Too bad we won't be able to find out on this show. But
Yeah. Oh, well. As, relative to the new location of the hospital, I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying. Oka Point, right? Because of, the infrastructure and...
I wonder if they spoke with, the doctors that were, GMA, the Guam Medical Association, or the Guam Medical Society, now that they're kind of together, to get their input on where they would like to see this new hospital.
I don't recall that, Bree. I just recall them coming out and saying, hey, we want to put it at Eagles Field. Probably because I was thinking if the governor didn't want, like, the foster home facility in her neighborhood, then she probably doesn't want a new hospital with all the traffic and the craziness that's it's going to bring to her neck of the jungle. But yeah, you're right. They kind of came out and they just said, we're going to put it at Eagles Field. And everyone
well, they
was
said they had options. Remember when Lillian Posadas was...
But they always led with Eagles Field, right?
Yeah. But they... I want to say Attica was one of the other proposed sites.
Yeah, and then where else?
Mingy, huh?
Yeah, well,
some
Eagles Field.
CLTC property
Yeah.
or something? Yeah.
Yep, so it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. It's 8:23, quick break, and we're coming back with our 8 o'clock newscast next right here on The Link. Good morning.
Confidate Guam, our community partner APL, invites the public to a donation drive to benefit Harvest House right here at home. Join us on Saturday, February 5th from